In Resident Evil Requiem, you're either confident in the light or fumbling desperately through the dark. Such is the fragile capability of FBI analyst Grace Ashcroft. The series' newest heroine is tough to work out. As Requiem's Gamescom demo begins, she's suspended upside down, bleeding and hysterical. Yet she somehow gains composure, pulling intravenous needles from her veins to escape into the narrow confines of the Rhodes Hill facility. But then, later, as she tiptoes through the dimly lit corridor, she is spooked by her own shadow. Usually, Grace serves the Bureau from behind a desk, and now she's in the field, investigating a string of strange deaths on the outskirts of a ruinous Raccoon City some 30 years after the original outbreak. Her duality, both in faculty and ineptitude, isn't just for thematic character building, but plays out in Requiem's camera perspectives too. Now in a series first, you can choose to experience the nightmare through first-person psychological compression or pull back into the spatial awareness of third person. Both are freely switchable and both feel distinct. Your camera choice will be tactical as well as personal. Now look, if we're talking duplexity, it's worth mentioning that Resident Evil as a series has followed two distinct through lines in recent years. The new first-person revivals, Resident Evil 7 and Village, and the remakes, beginning with Resident Evil 2 in 2019 through 3. Resident Evil 2 Remake modernized the classic template without leaning on the old fixed camera, slow burn presentation. They embrace a more cinematic, over-the-shoulder viewpoint and punchier moment-to-moment pacing, while still staying rooted in the earlier survival horror fundamentals. And in doing so, they form a clear remake lane of their own, distinct from the newer entries and their more experimental reinventions. Resident Evil Requiem is where evolutionary strands converge, paying homage to the series' legacy while harnessing the immediacy of its modern era. Through its switchable perspectives and Grace's own dichotomy, you're invited to meet Requiem's terrors at your chosen distance. And that's the thing about Requiem's horror. It isn't telling you explicitly that the dark is something to fear. It's questioning your mindset when confronted with it. Its first-person perspective condenses the feeling to suffocation, while third-person recoils slightly from the black, giving the briefest space to breathe. And either way, Grace keeps stepping forward, magnetically drawn, a light in the black, trembling. The only way out is for her to go further in. Now, as the short demo continues, it becomes clear that Grace isn't getting her hands on a firearm yet. The only weapon she wields is light, lamps, switches, and a discarded cigarette lighter. The reason light becomes her arsenal, we'll come back to that later. But here, inside the facility, is tightly wound exploration, key puzzles, and scavenger hunts, hallmarks of Resident Evil design. But there's inspiration from RE Village's atmospheric milieu, and RE2R's prowling threat too. Resident Evil Requiem wears its Village inspiration most clearly in how its world feels. The Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center is more than just a functional space. Its gloom bears the same weather density that defined Village. Ornate, Victorian decor, slightly gothic and partially damp. Its flickering offices reveal their moral rot, while the ink-black corridors and workspaces hide pulverized remains. Both the center in Requiem and Village's backwater hamlet harbor macabre history, and you feel it through their noxious atmospheres before you even understand it. And crucially, the dark atmosphere both games share isn't passive decoration, but a clear sign that their worlds are predatory. Like RE2 Remake's RCPD, Requiem weaponizes the care center's layout, giving form to a towering, shambling pursuer. The latest entry in Resident Evil's line of perilous stalkers, like Mr. X, Nemesis, or Village's Lady Dimitrescu, the wall-climbing thing in Requiem announces itself suddenly and chases you relentlessly through winding interiors. It routinely disrupts Grace's rummaging, emerging unsettling from practically anywhere, smashing holes in the ceiling to boot. Once the monster has announced itself, sound becomes a dictatorial force. It's both bait, which alerts your assailant, and your tool for distraction and defense in the black. Arguably more ingrained into survival than Leon and Claire's edges through the Raccoon City PD, where Mr. X's stomps and door slams echo across the cavernous station. Here, in tight, airless corridors, Requiem's hunter scratches through interstitial spaces and floor cavities, guiding every inch you claim. Of course, some moments are designed to provoke the beast too. As Grace carefully repositions an obstructing trolley, metal detritus inevitably falls. Sharp clangs cut through the heavy silence, and the monster's shambling closes in, creating a constant push-pull between quiet exploration and pragmatic scurrying. There's similarities to Ethan's skulks through the Baker house in RE7, but more so Requiem is showcasing confidence in stealth mechanics. And as is a staple of the stealth genre, you'll be able to grab the odd glass bottle to use most often as a device for distraction, smashing it into the dark to fool the monstrous being of your whereabouts. Inevitably though, the monster will find you. Despite some scripted moments, the developer claims the monster's behavior is reactive, that it's down to you to how successful you are in keeping Grace out of its chomping maw. Watching demo playthroughs, it's unclear to what degree the monster is supposed to find you, and what is because of Grace being a little too heavy-footed. But when the monster does give chase, there are locations of sanctuary to be found, akin to RE's save rooms but more narratively fleshed out. We alluded to it earlier. Grace's weapon inside the center isn't firepower, but light. Once she's scrambled into an illuminated room, the monster gives up. The fluorescent burns its skin, forcing retreat. Mr. X's refusal to enter any room with a typewriter in RE2R, while coming as relief, always felt just a little strange. Resident Evil Requiem circumvents that immersion-breaking oddity, giving tangible reason for the monster's backtracking, rather than being hard-coded to give you just a breather. From official artwork and gameplay snippets, we know Grace gets a gun in her holster at some point, but during this early section, she is vulnerable, underprepared, and borderline helpless, save for the odd light bulb. Unlike any previous RE protagonist, apart from perhaps Sherry's section in RE2 Remake, Grace personifies Requiem's horror, revisiting the creeping dread of the series' earliest entries by moving it away from Village's FPS leanings. And so, returning to Resident Evil Requiem's duality, you might be wondering why we haven't mentioned the game's other big deviation. Yes, we all know Leon Kennedy is returning as a playable character. And while it's a shoo-in, your moments in his command will feature explosive gunplay, there hasn't been enough gameplay shared just yet to show how his portions of the campaign will flow. Chainsaws aside, what do you think Leon's role will be? There are theories circulating as to why he's interested in Grace's investigation, but with the developer remaining tight-lipped, we thought we'd steer clear of speculating for now and really just leaving that up to you. So let us know in the comments what you think Leon's purpose in Resident Evil Requiem will be. What we are sure of, according to Requiem's developer, is that much like the switchable perspectives, the game's dual protagonists will control the horror's momentum. However, while you're free to choose your preferred camera angle, switching control between Grace and Leon, clinical vulnerability versus blood-splattering power means you're set for an emotionally turbulent experience, eking every ounce of silence, then severing limbs with aplomb, and back again. Requiem isn't reinventing the series' formula, but coalescing Resident Evil's fear to the rhythm of helplessness and response. If the developer can keep this balance steady, then Requiem may emerge as more than just Resident Evil 9, but where the series finally becomes whole. There's light in the black, but how is your fear of the dark?
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.